Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here.
Ooh, that was nice. All right, guys, today's date, May the 24th, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most we can on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try and make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, so we do try to give you the most reputable sources to where we find this news, as well as to basically say that we do try to watch our language, however words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this? Well, usually we have something crazy or have something along the lines of just flat out lunacy, but in this case, we actually have some somber news to report that we have lost, if not an icon, one of arguably the queen of rock and roll herself, Tina Turner, has passed.
On the air with breaking news in the music world. Tina Turner, the legendary rock and roll singer and performer, has died at the age of 83 after a long illness in her home near Zurich, Switzerland. Turner, born Anna Mae Bullock in 1939, was the daughter of sharecroppers in rural Tennessee before she became the queen of rock and roll, but even taught Mick Jagger how to dance. After years of performances across the South, she eventually rose to the highest levels of rock stardom. First as the electric frontwoman of the Ike and Tina Turner Revue with her ex-husband Ike, but she also had massive success on her own with a slew of hits, including Private Dancer, The Best, and of course, What's Love Got to Do with It? Let's go right to Rahema Ellis with the tales. Rahema, this cuts deep, this news.
It really does. There's so many people all around the world who loved Tina Turner. As you point out, she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, and once with a husband and then as a solo artist. And this statement was posted from her official Facebook page about her death. It says, "It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of Tina Turner. With her music and her boundless passion for life, she enchanted millions of fans around the world and inspired the stars of tomorrow. Today, we say goodbye to a dear friend who leaves us all her greatest work, her music. All our heartfelt compassion goes out to her family. Tina," it says, "we will dearly miss you." She was a devout Buddhist and credits her religion with helping her to survive a turbulent marriage with Ike. And she went on and had an illustrious career, including the greatest of Tina Turner and her world tour that she had, the final tour some years ago. And it was an amazing performance. I had the pleasure of being able to attend one of those concerts at here in New York. And Tina Turner will be missed by so many people all around the world.
That is true. Definitely a Tennessee native, trailblazer in her own right. For a lot of us, that weren't born, in the, I won't say long later years, because a lot of us, myself included, aside from history lessons, got introduced to Tina Turner through the famous movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? That was actors and actresses Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne, who gave us the roles of a lifetime, but also got the world to know Tina, or Annie Mae, however you choose to address her. But yes, is an icon. She is a queen. May you rest well. Moving right along from that, guys, we do got to get into the other stuff. And I'm not surprised by this. I'm not, because you know what I've noticed? That whenever it comes to helping people get ahead or helping people get relief or helping people simply move forward, there's always a bunch of individuals who will do everything in their power to make sure it doesn't happen. What am I talking about? I am talking about this, that the House is passing a bill Keep in mind, I am talking about the House of Representatives that is now majority GOP controlled. They are passing a bill to block Biden's student loan forgiveness program. Now, keep this in mind. That is still being mulled over by the Supreme Court on whether or not they want to take the case. But the GOP, because they answer to private banks, because they answer to lobbyists, are trying to make this stupid ass argument. And yes, I said stupid ass because it's a stupid ass argument that there are a lot of people out there that feel like, if you take a loan, you should pay it back. Now, in normal circumstances, I would not argue that. But let's say you are an 18-year-old or 17-year-old kid. You want to go to college. You don't have the 20 or 40 or God knows how much tuition a year to go to college. But you have been told in order to actually get the job you want or the career field you need to go into, you need a college degree. So what do? You take out a loan. Now, again, like I said, you're 17 or 18 years old. You do not, and these banks at the time did not have any regulation on how they signed up these lifetime loans to kids. As a kid, you don't know what you're signing. You do know that, hey, I'm just going to get a good job. I'm going to be able to pay this back. It's just the BS line is you are investing in yourself. Now, again, those kids are now adults. They've had some life experiences under their belt. But what hasn't gone away, they may or may not have gotten their degrees, their MDs, and so far and so forth. But the student loan debt is there because the career field isn't there. The pay isn't there. So as you're older, and keep in mind, debt to income ratio not only affects you getting a home, affects your chances of getting loans, affects your chances of starting your business, getting business loans, affects your chances of getting a job, because jobs check credit too. And that debt doesn't go away. I mean, until you go off into the great beyond, that's the only way you can get rid of the debt outside of paying it off or just hopefully winning the lottery. But a lot of people can't move forward because of this. And those who are not in that situation or who are fortunate enough than others seem to always be about this. Why do I got to pay for someone else's mistake? I paid off my loans. Where's my refund? It's a dumb ass argument because everybody's situation is not the same. And if you disagree with me, then 9 times out of 10, you're one of those very few people who will turn around and sit there and say, well, you should never take a loan if you couldn't pay it back. I'm sorry. Did you have a crystal ball? How could you tell what you're going to pay back if you don't know what the future holds? Because again, that was the con, that you had to invest in yourself. Not why is tuition at universities and states who are taking federal funding, why is their tuition going up every year? No one asked that question. No one asked the banks, why in the world do you offer these ridiculous terms and interest rates to where people are constantly paying off the interest rates of loans and never the principal? You would get lucky if you could pay off the principal. Nobody's asking those questions. But in this day and age, where Biden, who again could have done more, I will always say that, he did say he was going to do something about student debt loan relief, and he said he was going to forgive up to $20,000. Okay, cool. Which meant that a lot of people were still sitting there saying it's still too much. Whereas myself and others like myself are going, no, you need to go farther. Because if we can start 2 wars on credit cards, we can pay off student loan debt for everybody and give everybody a fresh start. But getting away from my point, the fact that the GOP have been in control of Congress since January, we are now a week off from approaching June. And at the same time, this is what they've done so far. What they've done so far is sit there and tell the American people, no, you don't deserve a break. You're not the banks. You're not Wall Street. You're not the same people who pay for our campaign funds. So why in the blue hell do you deserve a break? Because that's how the GOP sees this. That's how conservatives see this. Conservatives can care less about their constituents until it's election season. And trust me, with 2024 coming around the bend, the presidential candidacy is heating up because, especially from the GOP side, we know that if Trump somehow makes it to 2024 unscathed, he is going to run for presidency again. Because for a lot of people that don't know, him being found guilty in the rape case is a civil case. It is not a federal case. Had it been a federal case and he was convicted, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He would literally be disbarred from being a presidential candidate because he's a felon. Although technically he's a sex offender now. But that being said, the GOP, who again don't want to help people unless you're old, rich, and white, we're starting to see a new crop of candidates. One who I truly believe is the most successful get out experiment ever conducted. I am talking about the GOP's very own, one of two Uncle Toms, Tim Scott, has announced he's running for president. Color me surprised.
Live in the land of opportunity. We live in the land where it is absolutely possible for a kid raised in poverty, in a single-parent household, in a small apartment, to one day serve in the People's House, and maybe even the White House. This is the greatest nation on God's green earth. Today, I'm thinking back to my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, in the Deep South. By the time he was in the third grade, he was forced out of school. His education was over, and he was forced to start picking cotton. But my grandfather lived long enough to watch his grandson pick out a seat in Congress. That's the evolution of the country we live in. My family went from cotton to Congress in his lifetime. And it was only possible because my grandfather had a stubborn faith. Faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what America would be. He looked beyond the pain of his present, and he saw the promise of his future. That black man who struggled through the Jim Crow South believed then what some doubt now in the goodness of America. I was 7 years old when my parents divorced. We moved in with my grandparents. My mom and my brother, we all three shared one bed and one bedroom in that 700 square foot rental home. But my grandfather said to me, son, you can be bitter or you can be better, but you can't be both. You see, he chose patriotism over pity. He focused on the windshield of his life and not on the rearview mirror. And today, I'm living proof that America is the land of opportunity and not a land of oppression. Amen, 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 amen. I'm announcing today that I'm running for president of the United States of America.
Ooh, oh, good Lord. Can you believe this bullshit? I'm sorry. Okay. I apologize for the language I'm about to use. It's bullshit. You know what this is? And I said it before about Tim Scott. What I say about Tim Scott, I truly do mean about Tim Scott. That man is the greatest success story of a get out experiment outside of the movie. Because he did, you know what he did? I'm going to tell you what he did. He did everything. He followed the GOP playbook. You guys have heard me say this. See, when you're in the GOP, when you're a conservative, you got to hit those 3 high notes: faith, family, and hard work. That persistence, that pull yourself up on your bootstraps. Don't you be a victim. You go out there and you do better. That's the GOP, and it's bullshit. Because he went from saying my grandfather was a former slave, when he was the grandchildren of former slaves who picked cotton, and he got to see his grandson pick an office. That doesn't. Let me tell you something. That doesn't inspire other black people, because number one, how in the blue hell, and I say this not only to Tim Scott, I say this to anybody who's black and conservative. How in the blue hell are you black and conservative for a party that wants nothing to do with you? Nothing. Anything they voted on was against minorities. They sided with the police and police brutality. When your neighborhood was devoid of financial, educational, and other opportunities, you know what they blamed it on? The crime. Look at Chicago. Look at Philadelphia. Look at Black Lives Matter. They're all terrorist organizations. Notice they didn't sit there and say the one thing they usually say when the shoe's on the other foot. Oh, these white neighborhoods, they just need help. There's a mental issue. We have a fentanyl crisis. Amazing when it's white, it's an issue, but when it's black, it's a problem. Welcome to the GOP. And now Tim Scott, of all people, which he's running for president. And number one, not only is it's so laughable, but it shouldn't be, because number one, who among the GOP conservatives, hardcore conservatives, who joked about Obama, who joked about Obama's wife, who called Joe Biden old, who made fun of various Democratic politicians. Now you have a black dude who's a conservative, who's running for presidential office. I will bet money he doesn't get the votes that he thinks he's going to get, because you know why? It's going to leave some GOP people conflicted. Not only conflicted, but honestly fracked up, because Tim Scott doesn't stand for anything. He single-handedly destroyed the police reform of George Floyd bill, the George Floyd police reform bill that him and Cory Booker were supposed to be working on. Tim Scott destroyed it because he sided with law enforcement. He also voted, and again, he voted against women's rights. He voted literally against women's rights. And now this fool is wanting to run for office. All I can sit there and say is, how? And if he's going to get votes, good luck. I don't see it happening. Because again, the GOP, they always do this thing, pulling yourself out, not making yourself a victim, have family involved, have faith involved, because if you're not Christian, you're not conservative. Which is why you never see any other religions in the GOP besides Christianity. You see multi-religion. Now, I'm not giving the Democrats all the credit, although you do see more religions on the Democratic side. But when it comes to GOP, if you're not Christian, you ain't shit. But aside from Tim Scott, he is not the only person that announced his candidacy. Not because he feels it's time. It's only because the deadline was coming up that you need to hurry up and file. Dictator/governor Ron DeSantis is also announcing, but he's announcing with his buddy on Twitter. Color me conflict of interest.
This time about the 2024 presidential campaign. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has officially filed the paperwork to run for president. 3 sources familiar with his plans tell NBC News in a few hours DeSantis is going to publicly launch his bid in a live broadcast on Twitter, something never done before.
Early polling shows DeSantis is the closest candidate to former President Donald Trump, the frontrunner now for the GOP nomination. The one-time allies are now set to go head-to-head as Trump has increasingly bashed DeSantis in recent weeks. DeSantis joins a growing field in the Republican Party for candidates for president, and we could still see a few more after tonight. The first debate, little more than 2 months away.
NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has been following the latest on the Florida governor. He joins us from Miami. So, Gabe, it's pretty unconventional, I think, to say the least, to launch a presidential bid on social media. So why is DeSantis doing this, and what can we expect?
Very unconventional thing, Clay, and there are pros and cons depending on who you talk to. But first, I want to get to that breaking news that you mentioned. Ron DeSantis officially filing the paperwork with the FEC to run for president. This happened just a short time ago, and this all comes ahead of that event later tonight. This Twitter Spaces discussion with billionaire Elon Musk. Now, according to the DeSantis campaign, what they're looking at is that this is an opportunity to reach 140 million of Elon Musk's Twitter followers. They've been bashing the media for quite some time. This is a way to step outside of the mainstream media to announce this on social media. Unprecedented, as you say, but his critics are latching onto that this is out of touch, according to one Trump advisor who I spoke with today. There are questions about how much mileage he will get out of this. It is audio only. And so there are questions about how this will play out in the weeks ahead and whether this will have the same reach. But again, we expect that discussion with Elon Musk to begin at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and it will be watched by donors that are gathering here in South Florida. I just spoke with one a short time ago. They are eagerly awaiting to see how this rollout plays out in the coming hours in Clay and Kate.
So, yes, we shouldn't be surprised that dictator/governor Ron DeSantis is running. But it's interesting that he wants to do it on Twitter along with fellow douchebag Elon Musk. And I can't help but sit there and say conflict of interest, because it's like, what does Elon Musk get out of this outside of publicity? I mean, the fact that he bought Twitter was to consider it a safe space, when really it's not. It's actually the most vile, toxic place it can be since he took over. But at the same time, Governor Ron DeSantis wants to announce his presidency. And you guys have been hearing me say this, the next Trump is going to be worse because he's going to be smarter. DeSantis is Trump 2.0. He is, because look what he's done. With a supermajority in Florida, he got his Don't Say Gay bill passed. And then it got reprimanded, because at first, for you guys that remember, the Don't Say Gay bill was supposed to be from grades K, from kindergarten up until 6th grade. It then got amended all the way up to high school age. So in Florida, currently as it stands, from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, you can't talk about any sexuality outside of heterosexuality. Imagine the teachers, the students, the faculties who are simply different from others are now forced to live in exclusivity because some people can't deal with their bigotry. But that's not all that's not all dictator Ron DeSantis did. Aside from that, let's not forget, he took on Disney, a battle he is currently losing right now, because Disney made sure to dot their I's and cross the T's. Something he is losing in great number. But he also managed to affect history, or I should say affect curriculum, as in African American AP studies, where they had to redo the entire curriculum because some people felt that there were messages of LGBTQ plus and messages of brainwashing or programming kids, because again, they seem to be under this impression that LGBTQ plus people have the ability to literally integrate into kids and turn them gay. They really do believe that. And if you don't believe me, look at the next presidential candidate, Nikki Haley. But that's not a real name.
Education system, everybody wants to blame COVID for education. No, we had a problem with education before COVID. Pre-COVID, 70% of 8th graders in our country were not proficient in reading. 67% of 8th graders were not proficient in math. Last week, it came out that the numbers are even worse on history and civics. Then you go and you add 2 years of lockdowns, and our kids are in a world of hurt. Yet 90% of American kids are still under critical race theory, where if a little girl goes into kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad. If she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough and she's always going to be a victim. You've got biological boys playing in girls' sports. It is the women's issue of our time. Where is everybody? My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have that conversation with her. How do we let our girls think it's okay for biological boys to be in their locker rooms? Y'all know about Dylan Mulvaney? Bud Light? Make no mistake. That is a guy dressed up like a girl making fun of women. Women don't act like that. And you've got companies glorifying that. All while a third of our teenage girls last year seriously contemplated suicide? What are we doing to them? We're supposed to be raising strong girls, not those that are being made fun of.
Yeah, so I just love the fact how she sat there and said that the greatest issue affecting women right now is the fact that transgender people are playing in the sport of the sex they identify. That's the biggest problem with women right now. Not the fact that, abortion is trying to be outlawed and that people outside the women in their own bodies are being told what to do with their bodies. But somehow transgenders in sports is a bigger issue. This just lets you know that, number one, the GOP ain't shit because they all sound the same. It's always been this whole thing of, oh, well, sports is unfair. Sports has always been unfair. Anybody who's ever played sports knows it's unfair. It's competition. Fortune ain't fair. It's never been. But again, if we acknowledge people of the LGBTQ plus community, if we acknowledge transgenders, binaries, non-binaries, if we acknowledge and accept all that comes with it, so what if they want to play sports? Let them. Because I'll say it like this. One of two things is going to happen. Because as transgender athletes come out, either that they're going to have their own league, which a lot of people would prefer, but not understanding, colleges are not going to discriminate. So if you've got high hopes about your kid playing college ball somewhere, that college is going to look at that same trans athlete and think to themselves, who's going to be the bigger prospect? And let's just speculate. Let's say transgender leagues do happen, right? And let's just say colleges are looking more at transgender leagues than they are at heterosexual leagues. Are folks still going to complain then? How dare you take on Juwana, man, when my girl can play just as good as basketball as her? So you're arguing the fact that your child was able to play exactly how you wanted them to, but mad because what you want the university to do was follow your choices. Sounds a little bit hypocritical. And I do mean fucking hypocritical. That's the GOP for you, though. That their whole idea of fighting indoctrination has always been with transgender people, with LGBTQ plus people. That's how it's always been. Because they have it. They have it in their hearts, like they are out to indoctrinate. Just like here in Nashville about the bill that prevents drag queens from performing around children. Well, we don't want them to groom. We don't want them to groom our children into sexual deviance. Really? Have you been to Hooters, Twin Peaks, places where the women seem to be dressing up a certain way? At the same time, those very same restaurants have outfits for little girls. But we're not talking about that because, that affects your lobbying. But the reason why I bring this up is because not only has Tennessee, Nashville specifically, put out a law that bans drag queens from performing around children, so is Montana. Montana governor did sign a bill banning drag queen performers from reading to children in public schools and libraries. Because, and I quote, that he literally says, and again, notice the language in this, prevents children from attending sexually oriented shows and from being present at obscene performances on public property. It also defines it as an event hosted by a drag queen or drag king who reads children's books and engages in other learning activities with other minor children present. Are you effing kidding me? Let me tell you something, folks, because I want to be very clear so y'all know where I stand. As family members who are in the LGBTQ plus community, I will say this with 100% certainty. They are not trying to indoctrinate your kids. Okay? They're not. They are different than us, which is fine. They have their own choices to live the life they live without prosecution or judgment. No problem. That's how it should be. But they're not on this mission to indoctrinate. That's mostly Christians. Yes, I said it. Because the simple fact of the matter is, it's the fear that as the LGBTQ population grows, those population are now reaching voting numbers. The GOP is a dying breed. Those baby boomers and everyone else, so those bigots are dying off by the year. And as the face of America grows, the GOP realize it's not the pasty puff white raisin potato salad group that you're used to. It's different, and they know it, and they're scared. So what do? I don't want a man in a dress reading to my children. Oh, how dare someone take it upon themselves to show reading is fundamental to your child? How dare they show cultural sensitivity to your child so they don't grow up being a dick? How dare they? Because you know what's so funny about the GOP and the fact that they want to attack drag queens and LGBT groups? I'll tell you one group of people that GOP should be going after: Catholics.
Report from the Illinois Attorney General is shedding light on a long history of child sexual abuse by Catholic clergy. It says more than 450 adult Catholic clergymen abused nearly 2,000 children in the state over a period of almost 90 years. More than a third of those were previously undisclosed.
It was the survivors of child sex abuse who gave purpose and drive to this investigation. Absent their courage and willingness to come forward and discuss their experience, there would be no true investigative report.
The Attorney General's report recommends more coordinated investigations of abuse by clergy, greater care for survivors, and for dioceses to update their disclosures of alleged.
Right there for the world to see. 451 cases of abused children in a Catholic setting. 451. And that's the ones that were reported. Go across the U.S. And it's not just Catholics. It's Baptists, it's Church of Christ, it's other religions out there with tales of abuse, sexual assault, perversion, things of that nature. Catholics is the biggest group of perverts out there. That's all that is. And you know what's so interesting? Not one GOP person said anything about it. Not one GOP person is sitting there saying, well, we must talk about the horror of what these people endure at these religious institutions. I have yet to hear one conservative say that. Because you know what they're worried about? They are worried about the drag queen who takes the time out of their day to read to your child. They're not worried about Father Hannigan and his handsy-pansy at the altar boys at your local Catholic church. Because they don't want to talk about it. Because you know why? That very same Catholic church lobbies, pays their campaigns, buys their silence, lookaways. And I said this before, that's the real indoctrination. The real indoctrination the GOP is not talking about is what's happening at these places of institutions, not the fact that someone is just wanting to be kind and careful to kids and not spread paranoia, not spread bigotry, not spread hatred, because that's exactly what it is. And you have now 3 candidates. One of them has already been very outspoken. Trust me. 2, and also Governor DeSantis has said there and said, well, we are not punishing the LGBTQ plus community. By your law, it is. And trust me, Tim Scott's is coming, because with the GOP, those 3 candidates going against Trump, will have a high mountain to climb. But as long as they follow the GOP playbook of God, of faith and family and hardworking and not being a victim and being incessantly straight, but being also in the closet at the same time, it'll be an interesting thing to watch. But I just got to point that out of how messed up that truly is. But speaking of things that are messed up, and I've been trying to figure this out for the longest time, that the House is about to go in recess tomorrow. But keep in mind, we are in the middle of a debt ceiling crisis, that no deal has been made. And according to our treasurer, if a plan is not placed in by June the 2nd, America will default on their bills. Now, for all those that are wondering what's the holdup, well, the debt ceiling has always been a problem because Congress does have a budgeting issue. The Democrats want to move forward and say, look, we need to actually raise the debt ceiling. So in order for us to keep things going, because if Congress isn't working, this will affect everything else. For a lot of people who don't know, if Congress gets shut down, human and health services stop working, Social Security payments get cut off, disability payments get halted. When the government doesn't work, those things don't go out. And I always thought to myself, there's a way to fix this, but it shouldn't be done through the House or the Senate. It needs to be a law done by the people that literally sits there and says that the senators and House representatives' salaries are tied to the debt ceiling budget, which means that if you fail as a congressional body, you shouldn't get paid. You shouldn't. For a lot of people that don't know, whether you were once a senator or still are a senator, or whether you're once representative but no longer representative, you do get your salaries for life. Think about that for a second. You get over $100,000 or more a year for the rest of your days, even if you're not serving the country anymore. But I've always said it best: tie their salaries to that and see what happens. But no, again, with the debt ceiling being the problem, 15-time trier, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy says we need budget cuts. I wonder where.
Down over the debt ceiling as the nation races toward a potential default. Now just 8 days away, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy sending GOP negotiators to the White House today to resume negotiations. But earlier, he warned that he and the president are still far apart, actually accusing Democrats of driving up the nation's debt.
So I just think it's common sense, it's reasonable, and it's rational that we spend less next year than we spend this year. The Democrats today have become so extreme, so far to the socialist wing, that they are now opposed to work requirements, that they are now opposed to saving $1 less than you spent the year before. That, to me, really seems that the problem are the Democrats.
Meantime, the White House slamming McCarthy, accusing him of talking out of both sides of his mouth, publicly voicing support for a bipartisan deal while being beholden to far-right Republicans. Let's bring in our Jay O'Brien, who covers the Hill for us, along with my co-anchor and ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran, covering the White House today. So, Jay, GOP negotiators meeting at the White House. What more do we know about how things are actually going?
Yeah, Speaker McCarthy, in those remarks that you just played a little bit of a part of, said that he's, quote, hopeful that they can finish up negotiations today, and then said, quote, I think we can make progress today. But we've heard that consistently in one form or another over the course of this week, and the clock is very much running out here. Now, the two top proxies for Speaker McCarthy who went to the White House to negotiate, Representatives Garrett Graves and Patrick McHenry, telling reporters, Graves saying, quote, we've been trying to look at things differently, trying to come up with new ideas. That's what he said before he left for the White House, unclear what those new ideas might be. Here's what his counterpart, Patrick McHenry, also said.
I wanted this resolved when we took the majority in Congress. And the Democrats had the opportunity to raise the debt ceiling multiple times last Congress when they passed big spending plans. They didn't. They chose the strategy that Chuck Schumer said, which was to not negotiate. What we're dealing with today is resolving this issue on a timeline that we can legislate into reality a debt ceiling increase. Do we understand the deadline?
understanding the deadline is the end of that and a timeline that we can legislate. And the reason he brings that up is because, as I've been saying, the clock isn't just ticking here, it's running out. I've spoken with staff of Republican leadership who said on Monday and Tuesday that getting a deal and writing a bill would be in crunch time. Now it's Wednesday, so even if there is a deal, they again have to write the text of the legislation that would be the product of that deal. There's a 72-hour rule that gives lawmakers in the House 72 hours to review legislation before they vote on it. Within that window, you also have to get any legislation scored by the Congressional Budget Office, and only then would the House vote on it, and then it would go to the Senate. So even if there is a deal here, Kira, it turns the page in a whole new chapter of this, which is a long process in and of itself.
Oh, yes, it is. And Terry, regardless of a deal being made today or tomorrow, a lot of time has been lost. And so break it down for us. Could we see something similar to what happened in 2011 with the U.S. credit rating taking a hit?
Oh, for sure, Kira. There's no question because U.S. financial instruments, treasury bonds and notes and that kind of thing, they are really the pivot point of the entire world financial system. Why? Because for 234 years, the United States has always paid its debts. Since Alexander Hamilton was Secretary of the Treasury, it has been absolute rock solid certainty that the U.S. will pay its debts. And that's why the entire financial system of the world revolves around treasury notes, and all kinds of financial operations are pegged to it. And so one thing you could see, no question, is a downgrading of that debt as investors really get nervous that this time could be the time, especially given the dysfunction in our politics. There is a backdoor. They could pass a debt limit extension, but really they don't have, in other words, enough money to fund the government for at least a couple of weeks. They've done that before. They'd have to get clearance from Janet Yellen to make sure that that could happen. But right now they are up against it, as Jay described, and it is the politics of the day, which is nasty. You can hear officials really just blasting Kevin McCarthy, accusing him basically of talking out of both sides of his mouth, in public saying he wants to negotiate. They say in private he basically hasn't budged and is holding the president and the economy hostage in order to get what Republicans want.
We'll follow it. We definitely know that.
Yeah, I guess we'll follow it. Kevin McCarthy speaking out both sides of his ass. Tell me something I don't know, but it's the truth. We shouldn't be surprised. Conservatives have done this since Reagan. They always want to do spending cuts, but it's funny how Republicans don't say what they want us cut. They want us cut the spending on. Keep in mind, I've already said it before on this podcast. Here's what Republicans want to go after: Medicare, Medicaid. They also want to go after Social Security. They want to cut military spending, which as in pay for the troops. That's right. The troops that they know and love so much, they want to cut their pay and their benefits. Why? Because they don't want to cut the stuff that should be cut. You don't want to cut the banks. You don't want to cut Wall Street. You don't want to raise taxes on corporations. You don't want to raise taxes on rich people. Why? Because they're your constituents. And again, it's amazing to me that McCarthy is saying, well, we're so far apart, and that the Democrats really could have raised the debt ceiling. The Democrats, which again is an oversimplification, the Democrats had a small majority. And at the same time, there's a lot of things the Democrats could have done with their small majority, but they weren't united. It ain't like the mob of the GOP where you go against the mob, you're basically kicked out. But I love the fact how they keep on saying the Democrats have a spending problem, where Brian Tyler Cohen seems to bring this out just for everybody to remember. Little history lesson. The GOP raised the debt ceiling 3 times under Trump. They also raised the debt ceiling 7 times under the first Bush. They also raised the debt ceiling 18 times under Reagan. So among 3 Republican administrators, they have raised the debt ceiling literally 29 times. And have the audacity to turn around and sit there and say, we're gonna blame the Democrats. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, for all those that are wondering, Bernie Sanders did talk about that if worst case scenario comes in, that the president can invoke the 14th Amendment. Now, a lot of people who may not know the Constitution, I'll help you out. So the section he's talking about is right here. Public debt. Now, for all those that can't see it, I'll read it out to you guys. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any other state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. So that's basically them saying that yes, that the president could, in theory, use that amendment to go ahead and push forward and pay America's bills. Now, granted, like everything else, there's always a legal fight behind everything. But at the same time, do you really expect Republicans to come through? They're going to sit there and say, we can sit here and the world could burn. We're taken care of. And Democrats, again, not having enough votes because they don't have a simple majority anymore. The fact of the matter is, as the clock is running out, they may do a small extension and kick the can down the road a couple months. Because the thing about it is, when your constituents don't get paid, when your troops don't get paid, they're going to be looking for somebody to blame, and that's usually the president. But speaking of the president, guys, he is making a lot of history by nominating, again, the first Black Joint Chiefs of Staff. His name, General Charles Brown Jr.
General Charles Q. Brown Jr. do solemnly swear
I, General Charles Q. Brown Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
It is an absolute
exactly the way she had it. Haven't changed anything.
Why haven't you changed it?
Not ready.
Kenetha Taylor's daughter, Kaya, hasn't been in this room for over 3 years. The then 28-year-old missing since February 2020. Her black Toyota was found running nearby these train tracks in Plant City, Florida. Today, no arrests and Kaya nowhere to be found.
Kaya is a woman of color. Do you think things would be different if Kaya was white?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Black women and girls make up nearly 35% of missing women reports of all ages, but just about 6% of the population, according to government data. In response to this trend, there's a new proposal called the Ebony Alert, a public notification specific to missing Black children and women in the state.
It speaks to the disparities that still exist, not only in California, but across the nation when it comes to race.
State Senator Stephen Bradford hopes Ebony will mirror Amber Alerts, America's missing broadcast emergency response.
A 7-year-old Dallas boy is missing.
The program broadcasts alerts on highway signs, radio, television, and wireless devices when a child 17 years and under is missing, abducted, or in imminent danger. The Ebony Alert includes notifications for Black 12 to 25-year-olds who go missing or are deemed abducted, victims of human trafficking, physically endangered, or runaways. At 28, Kaya Taylor would have been ineligible for an Ebony Alert. Her mother, pleased with the new proposal, but believes it should go further with a cutoff age of at least 30 years old.
I've always referred to Amber Alert as crime control theater.
Timothy Griffin studied nearly 500 Amber Alerts from 2012 to 2015, finding the most significant variable in missing children's cases was the abductor's relationship to the victim, not the Amber Alert itself. His recommendation is a standard normal law enforcement investigation. The DOJ declined to comment on the pending Ebony Alert legislation, but Bradford believes his Ebony effort remains worthwhile.
It's better than not doing anything at all.
As for Kaya Taylor, her case is still open.
How are you and your family coping?
Well, we've all had to move on in a sense, but we've stayed strong.
Kenitha hoping all missing women and people of color get the attention they need to come home.
And yeah, I'm not against it. I mean, we've had an Amber Alert for that, basically for that one child that was never found. And again, it's amazing they say, well, you know, it doesn't do anything. Well, again, no action does nothing. But I'm hoping that the Ebony Alert does get put into place because, again, our people of color, whether they be men, women, little boys, little girls, all need to be found. Nobody should have to question or wonder whatever happened to their loved ones. That's all I'm saying. But speaking of things, like I said, people wonder, especially as we talked about, companies like Bud Light and other companies that are doing GOP style support, and then their biggotous consumer, redneck, disgruntled consumers, if you will, decide to shoot up cans of Bud Light or beat up Bud cans in a store, or decide to be Kid Rock and buy a whole bunch of things of Bud Light cans so you can shoot them on your property to show how manly you are. Yeah. So again, Target seems to be on the hot spot because, well, they look like they're no longer supporting it because they're pulling certain gender affirming clothing. I wish I could make this up.
Target, one of the nation's largest retailers, is pulling some products that celebrate Pride Month off store shelves. Citing threats to employees, the company says, given these volatile circumstances, we are making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior.
Okay, these are like naked people on shirts.
The retailer removing LGBTQ brand At Prowlin from their stores and website, whose products featured satanic themes. Target also reportedly reviewing its adult collection of tuck-friendly swimsuits that allows trans people who have not had gender-affirming operations to conceal their private parts. Those items have been at the center of misinformation.
The misinformation here was that kids were being targeted with this stuff. They realized if they can threaten enough people, if they can scare enough people in real life locations, that maybe support for the LGBTQ community will diminish among corporations.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right?
Target is hardly the only corporation under attack. Last month, after a transgender influencer promoted Bud Light, conservative commentators and some celebrities called for a boycott. Sales slumped nearly 30%.
I think there's this really small group who has an outsized voice at this moment in time, and it's of hate, and it's of hate discrimination, and it's violent.
Tonight, corporations and controversy with Pride Month days away. Miguel Almaguer.
That part. Pride Month ain't too far off. And Target, Target, just because so fact of the matter, is that they are literally leaning toward fear. That somebody's gonna sit there and say, there's naked people on this. Oh, no, it's not. It's what you fear. It goes back to what I said at the beginning of this podcast. There's always folks that be out there because it didn't start with clothes. It started with books. It started with books saying, oh, how dare they read Harry Potter? How dare those girls read Twilight? How dare those girls read To Kill a Mockingbird or The Diary of Anne Frank, or Flowers in the Attic? How dare they read The Catcher in the Rye, Of Mice and Men, The Grapes of Wrath, The Great Gatsby? How dare they read these books? Because a lot of parents are ignorant to the fact that these books are really teaching their kids how to think logically and critically. That's what those books are designed to do. They're not going to promote demonic worship or trans or book porn. I guess you can say the word I'm looking for. They're not doing that. They're simply there as teaching tools for the kid, for the person, not just the kid, for the individual who's reading that book, to learn, to develop, to grow. That's what they're designed for. But in the same sense with clothes. So what if they have gender-affirming clothes? Here's my question. If there are gender-affirming clothes in a department store and you yourself are not transgender, if you yourself are not looking for these specific types of clothes, Why in the blue hell are you on social media talking about, I can't believe they have these swimsuits for transgenders with extra crotch space at the bottom? Why are you looking? To me, it's like, why are you looking? To me, it's like you got caught, so you immediately had to turn into a bigot so everybody thought you was cool. Why are you looking? In the same sense, it goes back to drag queen shows. Drag queen shows have never had an issue. Drag queen reading out shows, actually drag queen shows in general, have never had a report issue. But GOP-led areas are. I can tell you there's always been a bar fight somewhere at Hooters. There's been a bar fight somewhere at Twin Peaks. There's been a bar fight somewhere where the groomed women, again, have to deal with the dregs of the human condition. The point I'm making out of all this is, yeah, there is a war going on out there, but it's an attack on people of color. It's an attack on the LGBTQ plus community. It's an attack on transgenders. It's an attack on anybody who's not white, straight-laced, and dumb. I said it. It's a war on everyone else unless you are white, straight-laced, possibly uber-religious, and more likely submissible to be dumb. Everybody else can see the problem, but unfortunately, enough of the ignorant ones are out there, just enough to push the needle. And that alone says a lot about the changing democracy in America, where people get twisted out of sorts because there are people out there that are different than them. And instead of just accepting it like a normal person should do, they want to force people to believe what they want. And again, still don't understand the definition of indoctrination. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because you know how the fact we got here. We do cover a lot of doom and gloom, sometimes making you fake humanity. But hey, it's hump day, which is Wednesday. Tomorrow, which is Friday, it's Thursday. We leave you guys on some good vibrations. And in education, thank God, there are teachers that are still like this that actually are there to help inspire and teach the next generation.
At Miami Springs Academy for Innovative Education, the future is now. And this first period robotics class is fully embracing it. It's part of a program called the Flying Classroom.
It has definitely made me realize the importance of technology in our world.
The program inspires thousands of students nationwide to explore careers in STEM. Anthony Delgado is learning how to build a solar-powered go-kart.
They're trying to tell us that we can do it no matter how hard it is. Show me what you do.
It's all a part of founder Captain Barrington Irving's passion project.
You don't call your students, you call them explorers.
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
We purposely call all of our students explorers because we want them to build a mindset of exploration. Everything isn't contained to a textbook. It's also contained within experiences and exploration.
Irving, who grew up in Miami's inner city, had a mentor who suggested flying.
I fell in love with aviation, and I wanted to share that passion with others.
He went on to earn his wings, create a nonprofit, and built his plane.
I started off with 3 holes in the bottom of my shoes. When I came here, begging people for parts, begging people for support, that's where I started.
At the age of 23, he broke a world record, becoming the youngest person to fly around the world solo. He's now using his trips to inspire the next generation of adventurers. Glaciers teach students about temperature and climate. Students build cars to learn about friction and suspension.
Take your time.
And studying owl pellets from Key West open eyes to biodiversity.
I feel like a surgeon.
The Flying Classroom taking students beyond traditional lessons.
I've had a chance to work with all types of kids from different backgrounds, different walks of life. And it's powerful to see when that light bulb clicks for them.
Opening new worlds and helping kids soar like Irving.
So, Constance, this is a great story. I understand now he's opening a school for adults.
Yes, it's a vocational school. Of course, we've heard a lot about pilot shortages, but there's a lot of positions open in aviation, and this school is going to provide a direct pipeline for those jobs that are needed.
All right, Constance, thanks for.
And again, I thought that was cool. Just for the simple fact of the matter, this guy has taken it upon himself to really take teaching to a whole different level and really show kids that they can learn through practical. And I can't knock that at all. Like I said before, I thought it was pretty cool and want to give that man's flowers because educators, great educators, will definitely inspire kids and kids will remember them. But That's going to do this podcast, guys. I thank you all for liking, for watching, letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Before we do get out here, do some shameless plugging as usual. Shout out to my friend Vaughn at BigVZA on all social media. You can definitely check out his page at bigvza.gmail.com. Also, his 3MG Beat Trap channel on YouTube, where it's plenty of free music content. He will not ban you. And if you're interested in purchasing it, definitely reach out to him and give him a shout. BigVZA on all social media. As for me, guys, you can find me BlackBox447 on all social media. I usually post reviews of everything that I watch, that I play, that I read, even gym stuff to do a couple push-ups. Also, link at the bottom. Let me make that a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you actually copy and paste this link into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack got here, get bit, of course, off on this podcast. I would like, share, and subscribe. We can also be heard on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, on Anchor. Wherever you can listen to audio podcasts, that's where you'll find us. So definitely spread the word around. Again, everything that we talked about, if you have difference of opinions or just want to actually have a conversation, let's keep it clean. Let's keep it smart. Let's keep the conversation going. That is all I ask. Now, aside from that, guys, again, this year, we need to be better about helping each other. I'm talking about being united, sharing things. If you know somebody's got going on, you know somebody that you know close by to you is doing something. And whether it's commerce, whether it's music, whether it's anything, you have the ability to help them out and get their word across when it costs you nothing. Sharing costs nothing. Support them the way you would have supported Beyonce if she divorced Jay-Z. That's all I'm saying. At the same time, less hating, more appreciating. It takes zero energy to let somebody know congratulations if they accomplished something or got the bag. But it takes 100% of your energy to be salty about something that hasn't happened to you, but you want to be jealous of others. Simply put, not cool. Don't be a dick. The last thing I say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind. But we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better in a lot of societies when we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman Supreme Court, electing our first black woman for a board of governors, electing our first black national cybersecurity director, and hopefully very soon electing our second black man to be the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's when we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up at our paychecks? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will get through this. Peace.